yogi, teacher, and the founder of Piece of Blue Yoga. Our guest today on the Settle or Be Better podcast is Mr. Brent Goble, who's going to be talking to us about building strength through yoga and understanding well-being. So welcome, Mr. Brent, and over to you. Why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about your yoga story and how has it been for you?
Thank you so much, Sakshi. I'm very happy to be here. So my name is Brent Goble. I am an American living right now in India, and I have been in India now for the past, I'll say, probably about 7 years now. 7 years probably in around September. And currently I'm living in Anjuna, Goa, and I've been living here about the past 4 years. Goa has been really great for me as far as cultivating the energy of my shala, cultivating a good, regular group of people that are dedicated to their wellness, to their practice. And it's also been overall just really great for me as a place to grow, as a place to be at peace. So I started my yoga journey back when I was around 21 years old, and I was living in New York City. I was living in New York City at the time. And in New York City, there's a lot of different yoga schools. And thankfully, in New York City, I was fortunate enough to pick up on a lot of different styles, which was great because then I got to try what worked for me, because one discipline of yoga may not work for everyone. Everyone's different.
True.
So I practiced a lot with Jivamukti yoga and Vinyasa yoga and Bikram yoga and Hatha yoga, Yin yoga, some gym yoga in there. But mainly I found a lot of joy and a really resonant feeling through Jivamukti and Vinyasa classes, where I would really be pushed a lot to the brink of my physical capabilities. And what I found was that really gave me the ability to, one, build my strength, but to get rid of all that nervous energy that I had accumulated in my body. And yoga is amazing for that, because through the postures, through the stillness, the body can express what it needs to while we're holding that mental focus through there. So over the course of a posture, that nervous energy begins to dissipate. And what are you left with? Well, that's different for everyone, but you get to that blank slate, that place of stillness through elimination of that nervous energy. So from New York City, I went to Las Vegas, and a lot of people might be thinking, oh, okay, never thought that that's a place for yoga. And granted, it's got one stigma, but also there are a good number of people in Las Vegas that swear by their yoga practice, and that's a really, really wonderful thing, because there's a lot of Cirque du Soleil performers, circus performers that are the professional, the elite levels, and they would attend a lot of the classes that I would attend. And through there, they had these offshoot workshops about refining certain advanced elements of your yoga practice, be it things called jump throughs and handstands and other advanced sort of binding postures where you're binding the limbs, you're locking them behind your back. So I learned a lot from them. And we would also have heated vinyasa classes. Now, everyone has heard of Bikram yoga, and that's a series of 26 postures taken over a span of around 90 minutes, where they hold each posture for about a minute and a half. It's a very brutal set series. And I did that for some time, but I really didn't like the rigidity of the practice. I do well with new things.
Right.
And so a heated vinyasa class was excellent for me in the sense that it really taxed my cardiovascular system. It taxed, my heart rate, my blood pressure decreased rapidly over time. And I was really building an unbelievable amount of endurance that I never had before, even in the gym or other forms of fitness. I was just at total peace despite being in hellish temperatures, about 110 degrees Fahrenheit and around 80% humidity. So
Oh,
it was a puddle underneath us. You could see your reflection in your mat, which is quite ironic. But anyway, so from there, from Las Vegas, I had practiced for a good 10, 11 years at that point. Upon meeting my wife, I then moved to India, and that's where I was feeling everything out. And I found myself at the Yoga Institute in Mumbai, where I was living, and decided, you know what? Why don't I get a certification? I've been doing this for a while. Why not at least see how I can take a certification from a prestigious institute and then give back to people?
right.
So I did my 200-hour TTC, and then I wasn't satisfied. So I went and did the 3-month course. So I was there for a good 4 months solid. And there we learned a lot about philosophy and a lot about the practical elements of why yoga and how yoga
Mm,
can help. But what I was kind of missing from the Yoga Institute was a sense of, is what I'm learning from the postural aspect,
right.
is this going to speak to a modern student? Is a modern student who nowadays we have a lot of things going on in our head, we have a lot of anxiety in our bodies. Does this really speak to that? And in my experience, I was still needing something a little bit more. So the next year, I found myself in Mysore at India Yoga Dhamma with
Mm,
Bharat Shetty. And Bharat Shetty, I did basically another 200-hour TTC, and it was there that we really learned some fantastic things that we will cover in our talk, obviously. But
sure.
I finally felt after that month where it was very, very tough. It was we were doing asana practice near 3 or 4 times a day. There was a lot of reflection, and a lot of reflection that wasn't necessarily scheduled. It was just things that would naturally happen to all of us. Whereas in the Yoga Institute, it was a lot of just work. It was a lot of school
Right.
work, it felt like.
Right.
So here, really felt like I was growing in really massive ways. And after that month was over, I finally felt ready. And it's again after 11, 12 years of studying this where I really felt that I can share something. I didn't. There's a lot of people nowadays that, hey, I'm interested in taking yoga because I want to be a teacher,
Right.
and it's like, how about we take a class first, and then
True.
we'll decide on whether or not we want to share it with people. Um, so yeah, that's really my journey in a nutshell. Now I'm in Goa. I built my own shala, and I've worked with a lot of really fantastic teachers and other students, and learning a lot about myself. And we opened during pandemic,
Oh, wow.
which might you might think that that would have been tough, but actually there was a beginners group that got locked down with me. So over the
Ah,
course of a good 3 months, I had them. I locked them in, and we practiced for 2 hours every morning, 90 minutes to two
lovely.
hours every day, Monday through Saturday. And they got very, very proficient, very quick. Everyone started dropping everything mentally, physically out of their bodies, and everyone just became exceptionally talented as far as a yoga practice is concerned. So yeah, now pandemic is obviously over. Things have changed, and now I'm just in the sustaining phase of my career, and I am loving it. I have I have a lot of things to be grateful for in my journey, and getting to share this gift of yoga with people is brings my life a lot of meaning. So
Absolutely. That was a lovely story. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's really inspiring, and we're really lucky to have you in India. And for the ones who don't know Piece of Blue Yoga, you can find the details in the description below. It's a beautiful place, and I hope that we all get an opportunity to learn with Mr. Brent very soon. So thank you for sharing that story with us. So how has your personal practice changed, from what it was in New York or what you learned in Las Vegas to coming here? And, how has it changed coming to India?
That's an excellent question. One of the ways that it's changed is being here in India. They taught me that this is very much an internal experience. And you have to grow with your yoga practice, because there are certain things that, okay, what would you say to yourself, 10 years ago going forward? Well, I would tell myself to breathe fully in and out through my nose. I would tell myself to lift up on my pelvic floor and draw my belly in. But at the same time, I would tell myself, you know what? Just practice every day, because there's no shortcuts, really.
True.
You have to grow with your practice over a course of time. So I would say that I went from somebody who was very superficially oriented. I would constantly compare myself with the next best person in the room. Our classes would have 60 to 70 people in them, and they weren't big rooms either. So they got real thick, sometimes very smelly. But you learned how to brace through all of those things. But for me, I was constantly comparing my practice to other people's. And what I have learned is that you never, whether it's this is a really big thing that I'm constantly learning, whether it's in the yoga space or dance space or gym space, you never know what that next person is going through. You never know what injury they might have had. You never know what they're dealing with on the inside. And it's really unfair to not only them, but to you, to base your practice off of what you see in their practice. So I would definitely say that I have become more internalized. I have become more peaceful. I have become, I would say, more nonviolent, or actually more loving in who I am and what my body is able to do. And I will just constantly, I don't want to say beat that into my students, but gently remind them ad nauseum
Right.
that this is a loving self-reflection and a beautiful experience that is only important to you. And nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to remember what you did later on. All that matters is you in this moment, in that 2.5 by 6 foot mat, and just breathe through the rest of everything else.
Absolutely. That was really well explained, because, even though yoga is really rooted into the Indian culture, there are very few people here, who take it that seriously and who understand the whole concept of being a yogi, or not just the movement part of it. A lot of people, when they want to lose weight or, go through a body transformation, and they might not have many resources, or they might not know where exactly to go for, especially if someone doesn't know how to strength train, they don't know how to CrossFit, any of those things, they might begin with yoga. I'm going to start Surya Namaskar tomorrow, or I'm going to start walking in yoga from tomorrow. So that is always there, but it's just that movement part of it which is usually focused on, and the other wholesome well-being that comes with yoga, it's usually not something that everybody gets to explore. So that's a really great way that you put it. Definitely everyone should get a chance to explore that for themselves, and there's a lot more learning through it, apart from just getting a body transformation, or losing weight or gaining muscle.
Can I touch on one more thing that you said? A lot of people, what they, and this is really, it's beautiful and it's funny at the same time. But I'll take people through a class and everything, and I'll ask them, what are you thinking right now? They're like, my head's going everywhere. My thoughts, like I can't quiet my thoughts, and I'm just got so much anxiety. And I said, yes. That's it. That's the practice right there. You've become aware of it. And like, I didn't know my head was such a mess. So we're all a mess. It's just some of us are a
True.
little bit more adept at dealing with it than others, but that's so much more of a better experience over time and
Absolutely.
understanding, hey, I hear those voices now. I don't really agree with all of them. Wait, a lot of that was BS. And I can let that go now. And so it's once you let go of those things and you face them and realize that's ridiculous. I think that. And once you let go of those things, it's remarkable how the body responds then. It's going through and facing certain either scary things or things that you might thought were scary, but they're actually really ridiculous. And once you're able to let go of those, your body will change. And a lot of the
Absolutely.
time with people with weight loss, you're asking them to analyze what they're going through, or at least to listen to what they're going through. And they make those discoveries, and all of a sudden, things start to drop off of them like they're a completely different person at the end. And
Right.
their face shines a little bit differently, their eyes glow, they carry their shoulders a little bit better, and you can tell they're breathing fully in throughout the chest. And
Right.
that right there, that assertion is beautiful, and that discovery is such a gift, not only to them, but I'm going to be selfish and say that's great for me also, because that's gold,
Absolutely.
and that's something between a teacher and a student that is this beautiful positive feedback loop. And
True.
it's those discoveries for me that make it all worth it. So
Absolutely, that was really well put. I mean, a lot of times this is missing, when it comes to a trainer and a client relationship, because when someone comes to any kind of a fitness expert, it's yoga or it's strength training. Not everybody focuses on the goals that one person might have apart from having a certain physique. It's usually okay, like how many kilos you want to lose in this month. What do you want to look like? What do you want to feel like?
mm-hmm.
It's really restricted till that much, those many questions. But really going through the process internally and understanding a lot more about yourself throughout the process, it's a really great way to go about it. So thank you for saying that. Now moving on to my next question and our topic today, which is strength training and yoga. So a lot of people have this notion that yoga is not really a workout, especially someone who's more used to having lifting heavy weights in the gym, or doing like really crazy stuff like CrossFit or calisthenics, all of these things. So a lot of these people have this notion that yoga really is it a workout, or is it just a part of a stretching that I'll do at the end of my workout. So can you just touch a little bit on that how is it possible to strength train through yoga, to build strength and muscle through yoga only, if someone is doing that?
Okay, so really, really important question that you just asked. And one of the biggest things that you have to understand is that you cannot build the density of muscle fibers through yoga. What you get to build is the tone of the muscle, the endurance of the muscle, and really what is very useful is the breath. Because when we are working in our yoga practice with our inhale and our exhale, is we are lowering the amount of cortisol that's in our system. We are treating the body that it's not under attack. It's actually in a eustress state, a good amount of stress that we're putting on it. And let me start this over. Okay, so it's a
Sure.
very good question that you just asked. And what's important here is that strength through yoga can be attained, but we are not going to think about building our muscles in terms of our yoga practice. What we're
Hmm.
thinking about is building our core engagement. We're thinking about our breath. We're thinking about maybe what's going on mentally with us. We're trying not to stress certain things. We're really understanding that mind muscle connection. And that's where we
True.
get to draw the parallel through each other. What I have noticed personally is that after about 15 years of my yoga practice, when I love lifting heavy things. Okay. I love lifting heavy things over and over and over and over again because I like this endurance that comes from it. But from my yoga practice, I get to stay connected to the muscle the entire time. And I have the wherewithal to know that if I'm doing something like a shoulder lateral raise, I can feel when my traps in the back are starting to engage up. And so I will consciously, from my asana practice, remember that I can relax my trapezius and then lift up from my medial deltoid. And if that's getting tough, I remember I'm going to push down on my trap and lift up. And so this contralateral motion takes place. And so
Right.
this is where that mind to muscle connection takes place. So can you build muscle with yoga? No. But can you develop amazing strength training principles through yoga? Absolutely.
Got it. Got it. That was really well explained. Totally answers my question. And I mean, it's true because a lot of time that is missing. The muscle mind connection is usually missing when, one is working out, which is one of the most important aspects of training. So it's a great way to go about it. And, I'm sure that you must be having a lot of students, beginners who might be coming to you with a very specific goal that just like what we discussed right now, to either lose weight, to gain muscle, or just for flexibility. But how is it that you try to instill this holistic approach with them? Like, how do you brief them? What is the sort of the goals that you place in front of them, that this is how we would be proceeding with this process?
Okay, well, first, this is going to sound a little awkward, but I'm going to definitely listen to whatever reason that a student has given to me, whether it's weight loss, whether it's more inner peace, or what have you. I'm going to take all of that, I'm going to put it on my shelf, and I'm going to forget about it. Because if a beginner is coming to me, we're going to work from square one. Because whatever was going on in your head right now doesn't serve you right now. That's great that we have this intention, and if we stay committed to our practice, it will happen. But I have to take that,
Right.
put it in a nice little ball, put it on the shelf, forget about it. So what we're going to do, first thing, is we're going to work on your breathing. We're going to take some inhales through the nose and then out through the nose. And then I'm going to watch as your shoulders and your upper chest goes like that. And I'm going to say, no, we're not going to do that. And all of a sudden, that very first inhale, exhale exercise where I say, no, we're not going to breathe that way, all of a sudden they realize that the most primal autonomic function of breathing has to change. From a very baseline standard, that
Right.
cannot remain the same. So if you take someone from that from that place where never thought I had to change this ever in my life, we're going to start in a completely new level of being. Now that little thing that we came in with is not important anymore, because we have to learn how to breathe without lifting our shoulders. We have to learn
True.
how to breathe into our stomach. We have to learn to inhale through all the different dimensions of our torso. And once
Right.
people start doing that, they realize, I'm not really thinking about weight loss right now. And
Absolutely.
that's a wonderful thing, because all of that anxiety around, I don't know what this is around my stomach, or my arms are flabby, that's gone now. Now we're just going to focus on the simple act of breathing. And what you
True.
start to notice is all that tension in the face and the neck and the shoulders. As they do those simple inhale, exhales over and over again, all of that starts to dissipate. And a new shine comes in on their face. And then that's when they're ready to begin. I'll lay somebody down on the mat and put their bottoms of their feet up so their knees are in the air. And I'll have them place their hands on their stomach. And then inhale, extend the lower abdomen out. Exhale, let it fall. this diaphragmatic breathing. Because when everyone breathes, what they're normally doing is they're breathing up into the chest over and over and over again. And they're completely forgetting that you have an entirely different dimension below the ribs here that is crucial
True.
to your well-being. There's so many, I'll call it, quotes, things that are down there that you probably haven't experienced before. And so taking
Absolutely.
that time and using the breath to move in and out of those places, my God, it's exceptionally powerful for people. So finally, then I'll stand them up, and then we're going to talk about two separate things that are crucial for just all around life, let alone yoga. Pelvic floor,
Mm.
lower belly. The 5 muscles of the pelvic floor, and then and it's my dog, and then the transverse abdomen of the lower belly. Now, the next lesson that I'm teaching people is what their core is and what it is not. Their core is not their six-pack. The core is not just squeezing into all the different muscles of the abdomen. The core is actually the intersection between the pelvic floor activation and the lower abdomen. If you think about if we think back in school, we have two intersecting lines.
Right.
We have the x-axis and we have the
Right.
y-axis, correct?
Correct.
Okay, correct. Now, the y-axis is our pelvic floor. If we think about y equals 0, that's straight up and down. If we think about the x-axis, that's our lower abdomen. That's x equals 0. Now the intersection, 0 equals 0, that intersection is your core. And through there, what you teach people is that the core is actually about the size of, say, a ping pong ball. It's not this global basketball sort of, I got to squeeze all this and hold my breath and just tense everything. It's actually very small. So once I get people to lift up on the pelvic floor and draw in on the lower belly, then they start to breathe easily through here. Okay? So at the intersection of these 2 points, we have our core. Now, we talk about the z-axis, the z-axis. That's the breath. Okay? So in all of these 3 dimensions, we have 3 things working together. Pelvic floor, lower belly, and the passage of the breath forward and back. And usually I call that right about the center of their chest. So through here, through the activation of all those 3 things, what begins to happen? Heat, energy build through here. And through that heat, all of the muscle, all of the tissues of the body begin to relax. They begin to heat up. They begin to gently tense up in the ways that they're meant to, not tense up as in, I'm going to hold everything. No, they engage where they need to and then they relax. They engage where they need to and then they relax. This activation of these muscles in a eustress, in a parasympathetic way, sympathetic versus parasympathetic, brings a lot of feel-good hormones into the body. Now, is it always comfortable? Not really. But over the course of a class, we begin to feel better and better and better because the body is working in harmony with all the systems rather than in conflict. Okay? So that's something that I help engage people with, and it's a practice. When people lift up on the pelvic floor, they automatically think that they have to hold their breath. And so I am always reminding them that continue to breathe. You can lift and breathe at the same time. And you just start to see everything on their shoulders and neck. All of this starts to beat up with sweat really quickly. And then building up that heat within the body, you start to find that hey, we're using the body the way it's supposed to be used. And
True.
there's no space then over a good amount of time. There's no space then for excess body fat to be there because the body won't need it
Right.
anymore. So it's going to tap into those energy stores and use it as fuel. And over time, you're not going to need it anymore. So then now we come back to the original thing of before that person walked in the door, problem is solving itself.
Absolutely. That was really well explained. And I mean, for sure that, this really creates a love for the entire journey of working on yourself. And it doesn't just, get limited to a chore that you have to do. You have to wake up, you have to go to the gym, you have to do this. You have to do this instead of, getting to do this and working on yourself, being in the moment and really internalizing the whole process. So thank you for explaining that. That was really well put. And coming back to strength training and yoga, so what would you say, that's for our listeners to take back, are some of the postures that they can particularly work on that would, translate well into their strength training, in terms of the skills that they'll learn here that can apply, in the gym or lifting weights or calisthenics, anything that would help them. So in terms of breath work or core engagement or particular postures that they should work on.
Absolutely. So the biggest struggle with all new yoga practitioners and even intermediate ones is chaturanga, which is four-limbed pose, also known as a low push-up or a low plank position. Now,
Right.
there's a quintessential mistake that all people make, and I call it chaturanga booty. Okay, that's where as they're going from a high plank into a low plank, the waist drops, but the booty comes up. And what you're doing is you're throwing all of that tension into your lower back and probably collapsing into the shoulders. You're pinning your neck really badly. And so
Right.
what I drill, and I am maliciously sadistic in my chaturanga training with my students, it's always posterior tilt. Drop your knees if you need to, and bring your chest forward as you bring the shoulders in line with the elbows. Now, I did my yoga practice this morning. I did my meditation practice, and then I went to the gym after I taught my class. And so I was working my chest today, and I drop my knees all the time. And if you drop your knees but still maintain that posterior tilt as you
Right.
lower down, then you'll be able to lock in that posture so much better. Now, for your audience, what do I mean when I say anterior, posterior tilt? So imagine yourself standing in an upright position and you bring your hands to your waist. Now, push your stomach forward and allow your hips to rotate forward as if your tailbone was shooting back behind you, like this big booty sort of feeling. That's called anterior rotation. Okay, anterior to the front.
Right.
Now, you tip that pelvis back to the neutral place. Now tip it behind you. As you're standing up tall, you'll feel that those hip adductors, all the levels of the abdominal wall start to draw in towards the spine. Now, as you're in that posterior state, you stand up as tall as you can, and then you start to feel that tension in the core. That transverse abdomen, the deepest layer of the abdominal wall, drawing in towards the spine, is
Right.
amazing, first of all, from a health standpoint, because over time it reduces one of the biggest health destroyers, visceral abdominal fat. The toning, and this is for everyone who's like, I want to reduce my stomach size, listen to this. Activation of that transverse abdomen, drawing the stomach in while still maintaining a solid breath rhythm, is the key to reducing that overall stomach size. It solves a lot of issues. Other ones you have to fix with diet, certain amounts of moderate exercise here and there. But being
Right.
able to manipulate that transverse abdomen is really, really crucial. So when I tell people, and I've worked with athletes before who have terrible high push-up to low push-up technique. And so once I get them into high plank and I tip their hips back, you see their whole body start to shake. And these were people that can knock out 30, 40, 50 push-ups in one
Right.
stretch. But it's like, okay, now let's do it where the core is actually engaged.
Right.
And they'll knock out 7 or 8, and then they'll look at me like, you ruined me. I said, did I? So developing an excellent chaturanga is not only great for your core, it's a full body torture. Torcher, not Torture. It torches the body because everything has to stay engaged. From the backs of the calves to the quads to the inner thighs to your glutes, your abdomen, your upper chest, your shoulders, your triceps, even your erectors in through the neck. Everything is engaged. It's a wonderful, beautiful exercise if you do it correctly.
True.
So I encourage everyone, take some time, understand this anterior pelvic tilt, posterior pelvic tilt, and if you need to, drop your knees. They are not called girl push-ups when I can put male
True
athletes
that.
in them and they're nearly crying when I have them do these quote-unquote girl push-ups, modified chaturanga. When I have them do it correctly, they struggle to no end. They stop breathing. It's like, not girl push-ups, are they? No. They're like,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I'll never call them that again. So I remind everyone, whether you're doing full push-ups or modified push-ups, it doesn't matter. Just make sure that pelvis is tipped back and you're not coming shoulder below the elbow. Keep it just in line. Don't overwork yourself. You're getting diminished returns through that. Okay, so chaturanga from our yoga practice, doing it correctly is the best way that we can cross over between the gym world and the yoga world.
Lovely. That was really great. I mean, focusing even on just one kind of a posture and, really mastering that can really have a great impact on your, workouts and your trainings. And that's a great way to go about it, because otherwise it's like, okay, now I have to do yoga if I want to complement my other trainings. That means I need to go and, do it every day for 2 hours and learn all the postures that are there all in the world, but it's great. It's a great way to go about it, to focus on one particular aspect of it and, really with the intention to engage your body, engage all your muscles, and really build your strength up from there. So that was really well explained. Thank you for that. And so, coming to a yoga practice of anyone, suppose they don't have an access to a trainer, they still want to go about it. Maybe they had taken some classes earlier, but it's something that they want to do on their own. What should be the duration of everyday practice, and what is the percentage of that? How does it, all turn out?
How to start? Excellent question. So what I usually do is, in my practice, I open up with a little bit of breath work. Now, this is different than pranayama. I'm doing 30 to 40 open mouth breaths. So I'm using the Wim Hof method through here.
Right.
And I end that 40 breaths with a suspension of breath for as long as I can. I inhale, retain the breath for as long as I can, and then I come up and come into my meditation for about 5 minutes or so, centralizing my breathing and just getting that cycle over and over, in and out through my nose. Then I'll say a little intentional prayer to get myself going. It really helps lock in that higher self with why you're doing what you're doing.
Right.
And then I go into a light joint warm up with whatever I'm working on that day, whether it's spinal mobility, core strengthening, hip opening, or upper body work, or some twisting, binding, that sort of thing. So I will do my light warm up around that.
Right.
Then I'll come into Surya Namaskar, either traditional, which is our 12 postures, our Vinyasa A from Ashtanga Vinyasa, or Ashtanga Vinyasa B, okay? And or a combination of 2 or all 3 of those. Then I'll go into my standing asanas and then my kneeling. But you're asking probably about time frame. So my initial breath work takes around 7 to 10 minutes. Little light meditation, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And then, okay, so where are we at? We're already at 17 minutes in there. And then for whatever I'm doing, about 2 to 3 minutes of light work. And then from there, standing asanas for a good 20 minutes that I do. I do it from the Ashtanga Vinyasa primary series. I do the standing series in there. And that takes around either 20 to 30 minutes, depending upon what my body needs that day, how long I want to hold each posture. And then I'll go into what I'll call the main focus, whatever I'm working on. So then I'm going to come down onto my mat and I'm going to work on my spine. I'm going to work on my core. I'm going to work on my hips. And then I will work on that for another good 20, 30 minutes. Then I'm going to come into some seated stuff, get my heart rate back down, get my breath under a reasonable rhythm. And then from that, that's where your body is super saturated. You're probably sweating a little bit. Everything is starting to open up. And then you can start holding postures for a little bit longer, but basic postures, seated forward fold. I'll call it butterfly or wide angle forward fold splits. Okay, any one of those. And then I can work on some inversions, flipping my blood pressure upside down to really help balance everything out. And then Shavasana for about a good, I don't like to hold Shavasanas for too long because I found that if I hold them for too long, I fall asleep. And so I usually set a timer on my watch where I can just completely fade away for a good 5 to 7 minutes. And then I come up and I'll roll up and set another timer for about 10, 15 minutes and then just sit there and enjoy my body at peace. So I didn't do the counting in there. I don't know. It comes out to usually around an hour, about an hour 10 by the time I'm finished. So yeah, and then I go and have my breakfast, take about 15 minutes, and then I go to the gym. So that's my schedule.
Lovely.
But anyone first starting out with this, really take all those different sections I did, take a few minutes with each, and I would say if you're first starting out, give it 20 minutes. Get on your mat, move your body around, do a few Surya Namaskars, do a few standing asanas, and if you don't know what you're doing, it's okay for right now. Don't lock out your knees. Bend your knees if you need to, but continue to breathe and breathe loudly in and out through the nose. That's what everyone, if you don't have a teacher, just continue to count your breaths in and out through your nose, 5 to 9 breaths per pose, and relax. Try to enjoy it through here. There's always going to be a little bit of pain when you're first starting out. That's true with everything. But the more that you do it, what's wonderful about whether it's gym results or a yoga practice, you built this yoga practice on your own. And there's a pride there. There's a certain ownership and responsibility that you develop over time. It's a discipline. And discipline equals freedom. When we learn to grow within a confined space, that is much better than being a free-floating atom out in the universe, having no boundaries whatsoever. Learn to keep yourself in a fixed place for a certain period of time and learn to grow out of that space. And then go about your world and take your practice with you. Keep that in the back of your mind. Okay? So
Lovely. Thank you so much for that. That was really well put. And this is really a great takeaway for our audience because, that's something that a lot of people struggle with, that where do I begin with yoga? How much duration should be my practice like, and what should I really include in it? Because when it comes to strength training in the gym, or anywhere else, it's pretty much like the basic, you warm up, you do this, you lift these weights, you do leg day, you do back and bicep, and it's a cool down, you go back. But with yoga, it's like there's so much information out there. There's just so many options out there that it's really misleading or confusing at times, where to begin. So this really explains it. Thank you for that. And lastly, coming to our final topic is, what does yoga teach us about well-being, and what is particularly that we can learn from yoga about well-being?
It's important to note through here that while there, and I'm not going to say I'm guilty of this, but I have catered certain yoga classes, or I have catered certain elements of a yoga practice towards something that is not technically the end result of yoga. What everyone needs to understand is that the whole purpose of yoga is to achieve self-realization. There is no other final goal than that. Now, if we shoot for the stars, we shoot for the moon with that intention, you fall somewhere in wonderful places just short of that with everything. What they have discovered with asanas is that they're incredible for lowering blood pressure. They are incredible for reducing all sorts of pain symptoms and diabetic issues, acidity, which is a major, I'll call it killer, heart disease, lung issues. But in terms of well-being, what's going on mentally with I'll say us as a collective nowadays?
Mm-hmm.
And where does yoga fit in with that? Yoga gives us I'll use the word crucible, a place where we can put ourselves inside this little vessel and light it on fire. And in that, there's certain byproducts that come out of that fire. And that is what we hold on to, and the rest is melted away. But during that stage, you're going to have to come to terms with whatever is starting to be lit on fire.
True.
It takes a lot of bravery. Yoga is not always pretty. Don't get me wrong. People think that, we're doing a practice and our faces are serene and it's a little light sweat here and there, But sometimes it's terrible because there are certain things that we don't want to talk about or confront. But our yoga gently brings us to that place where if we really want to grow, if we really want to evolve as people, we're going to have to touch on a few of these things. Now we can breathe through it. We can face the big, bad, ugly of it. And you're going to survive at the other end. And you're not going to say, but wait, I needed that. After you let it go, you're going to go, oh, I feel better. I didn't know I was holding on to that for so long. And that's what's so great about being a yoga teacher is people come in and they're all up here. You can see it. You can see this tension up in their throat. They're like, I'm going to do yoga. And it's this determination that somebody told them you have to be determined when you go in. And it's like, okay, let's see how long that lasts. Then you compare them to the end of class when they're sitting there in seated meditation, and all of that's gone. The discipline is there. The energy is there. But the stress is gone. And so you would think that over time, that place of peace and inner calm, I mean, what maladies can survive in a condition where it's just peaceful and serene and the body is in harmony with itself? Certain things just overall dissipate and they leave. And so if we're left with that peace and calm and that gentle determination and clarity for ambition and the things that are important to us, that's well-being to me. And I can say for direct experience, some of my students, their clarity is increased, their sense of purpose, a sense of meaning has increased in their lives. And that's just something that is just so yoga, it's just, I'm sorry to use a cliche, but it's just, that's the practice of reaching that place of the divine. And That's it. So.
Absolutely amazing. That was really, really great. And this was a really insightful session. Thank you for being here today and, answering our questions and telling us so much more about yoga that we might not already know. Thank you so much for being here today. Lastly, are there any messages, any suggestion for our audience as we conclude the session today?
So everyone needs to understand that we are, if you look from the outside in, we are the most comfortable and well cared for generation to ever walk the earth. However, if you really look at people on a day-to-day basis, you'll see that we are also the most troubled. We have so many distractions, so many things that are plaguing us. Societal pressures, family pressures, things that make us feel like we have to measure up to some ideal. And I encourage everyone to take 5 minutes at the start of every day, cancel your alarm, click it off, do your morning bathroom. Do not go to your phone. Take some time in the morning, do a little bit of light breathing for a couple minutes, set a timer for 5 minutes. And all I want you to do is whatever comes up in your mind, simply look at it and say, I'm grateful for that. And what you'll find that during this practice is if you just allow the brain to just kind of do its thing, but instead of reacting to it, you say, yes, and I'm grateful for that because I have a life that may have its issues, but I have my life. Or this person is causing me problem. Hey, I would rather be a person with relationships that I'm grateful for rather than being alone. So I'm grateful for that. Continue to do this over and over, and you're going to start to notice your thought process and the things that your mind pulls up are going to start to be really, really interesting. You carry this positive feedback of gratitude in throughout your daily life and see how your life changes. I kid you not, it will make a remarkable difference. Just 5 minutes. You won't regret it, I promise you. And people say, I don't have time in the morning. Yes, you do, you liar. You have 5 minutes. Okay?
Absolutely.
So take 5 minutes. It's the best time that you'll ever spend all day, and you give it to yourself.
True. And I think we owe it to ourselves to, give us those 5 minutes at least completely to ourselves. So thank you for that message. It was a lovely message. And thank you again for being here today. It was a really insightful session. And there's so many takeaways from this episode. I'm sure a lot of people will be grateful for your presence here today. That was it for today. I am Sakshi Pawar and I'll be your host for the Settle or Be Better podcast. And for the ones who'd like to reach out to Mr. Brent, you can find the details in the description below. Go follow him and Piece of Blue. If you want to go and know more about yoga and also a little light humor, then that's definitely where you want to go.
I gotta keep the audience a little interested. It can't be yoga all the time. So
True.
Thank you very much, Sakshi. That was a wonderful session, and I wish you well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You know the drill. Subscribe to the Settle or Be Better podcast, like, share and comment on our videos, and hit the bell icon because you don't want to miss the mind-boggling health discussions we're about to bring for you. Why settle when you can be better?